Have you ever had a moment in your life where everything you dreamed of came crashing down, and the person who caused it was someone you trusted with your whole heart? I'm talking about the kind of betrayal that cuts so deep, it leaves you questioning every memory, every bond you thought was unbreakable. That's exactly what happened to me when my own brother sabotaged my wedding day. The one day I thought would be perfect, and then refused to even say sorry, leaving me drowning in anger and heartbreak. This isn't just a story about a ruined wedding. It's about the messy, painful journey of trying to rebuild trust with the person who's supposed to have your back, no matter what. I'm going to take you through the gut-wrenching moment I realized what he'd done, the years of resentment that followed, and a twist that forced me to see everything in a new light. Stick with me, because I'm still figuring out how to let go of the hurt, and I need your help to decide what comes next. Let's dive into the most devastating, and yet somehow hopeful, chapter of my life. My name's Caleb, and I'm 32 now, living in a modest apartment in Portland, Oregon, a city known for its rainy charm, quirky coffee shops, and the ever-looming presence of Mount Hood in the distance. Portland's a place of contrasts, hipster vibes with food carts on every corner, lush greenery along the Willamette River, and a moody, overcast sky that often matches the storm inside me. This story centers on the betrayal I faced from my older brother, Nathan, who single-handedly turned my wedding day in 2017 into a disaster I'll never forget, and my long, emotional struggle to find forgiveness in the years that followed, stretching all the way to 2023. The emotional conflict tearing me apart is the clash between the deep love I've always had for Nathan. He's my only sibling, my childhood protector, and the searing anger over his refusal to own up to what he did, leaving me stuck between wanting to cut him out of my life and aching to mend what's broken. The unexpected twist came in late 2021, when I discovered Nathan's actions weren't just selfish or cruel. They were tied to a hidden struggle with addiction he'd been battling in silence, a revelation that flipped my perspective and forced me to rethink everything. This all unfolds in Portland and the surrounding areas, with the city's drizzly streets and rugged landscapes weaving through my memories of pain, hope, and everything in between. Growing up, Nathan and I were thick as thieves, sharing a tiny bedroom in our parents' old house in southeast Portland, where the smell of damp earth after rain always lingered and the sound of freight trains rattled the windows at night. I was the scrawny, quiet kid who'd rather sketch in notebooks than play sports, while Nathan, 3 years older, was the loud, confident one who'd drag me on adventures, sneaking into abandoned lots near the river or biking through Forest Park until dark. I'd lie awake at night, listening to his wild stories about high school pranks, idolizing him even when he'd tease me mercilessly, never imagining he'd one day be the source of my deepest hurt. Now, sitting in my apartment with the soft patter of rain against the window, I think back to those simpler times, wondering how we drifted so far from the brothers who'd promised to always stick together. The nightmare began on a sunny June day in 2017, my wedding day, when Portland was alive with summer energy, food festivals downtown, roses blooming in Washington Park, and I was buzzing with nerves and excitement to marry my high school sweetheart, Emily. We'd planned everything down to the last detail, a small outdoor ceremony at a vineyard just outside the city in the Willamette Valley, with rolling hills and the scent of grapevines in the air, a dream I'd saved for since I started working as a graphic designer at a local firm. Nathan was supposed to be my best man, the guy I trusted to keep things together, but as the morning unfolded, I noticed him acting off, disheveled, late to the venue, his eyes glassy in a way I couldn't place. By the time the ceremony started, I was too caught up in the moment to dwell on it, until halfway through our vows, when Nathan stumbled up, slurring through an unscripted, incoherent toast that turned into a rant about how I was throwing my life away. The gasps from our guests, the heat of humiliation burning my face, and the sight of Emily's shocked expression are seared into my memory, a moment that turned my perfect day into a public disaster as Nathan was dragged off by friends, leaving me to salvage what I could. The aftermath of that day hit me like a freight train, the vibrant Portland summer a cruel backdrop to the wreckage of my emotions as I grappled with what Nathan had done. I didn't even get a chance to confront him right away. He disappeared for the rest of the weekend, leaving me and Emily to face whispered apologies from family at the reception, the taste of wedding cake bitter with embarrassment. When I finally tracked him down at his apartment near Hawthorne a few days later, expecting at least a shred of remorse, he just shrugged, muttering something about speaking his truth, his refusal to apologize cutting deeper than the act itself. I remember standing in his cluttered living room, the smell of stale beer hanging in the air, feeling a mix of rage and disbelief, wondering how the brother who'd once punched a bully for me could stand there so cold. leaving me to question every bond we'd ever shared. The emotional fallout lingered through the rest of 2017 and into 2018 as I tried to rebuild my life with Emily while the sting of Nathan's betrayal festered. Each rainy Portland day a reminder of the joy he'd stolen. I'd lie awake in our new place in Northeast Portland, the distant hum of traffic outside our window blending with my spiraling thoughts, replaying that wedding moment over and over, wondering if I'd missed signs of Nathan's resentment or if I'd been too blind to see he wasn't the hero I'd built him up to be. Emily was my rock, but even her patience couldn't erase the tension that crept into our marriage, the unspoken weight of family drama shadowing our early years as I pulled away from Nathan completely, ignoring his rare texts, unable to face him without feeling that burn of anger. Portland's gray winters, endless drizzle, the chill of walking along the East Bank Esplanade, mirrored my mood. Every memory of family barbecues or childhood pranks now tainted by the image of him staggering through my vows. By 2019, the distance between Nathan and me had grown into a chasm, and I threw myself into work and routine to numb the hurt, though the unresolved pain gnawed at me on quiet nights. I'd spend long hours at my design studio downtown, sketching logos under the glow of industrial lights, the buzz of Portland's creative scene, local bands at Doug Fir Lounge, art openings in the Pearl District, a distraction from the brother-shaped void in my life. I started avoiding family gatherings altogether, dreading the inevitable questions from relatives about what happened with Nathan, each mention of his name a jab to the gut, as I wondered if I'd been too harsh in cutting him off or if he'd ever cared enough to fight for us. I drive out to Multnomah Falls on weekends, the roar of the waterfall drowning my thoughts, wrestling with memories of hiking there with Nathan as kids, his goofy dares to climb higher now a bitter contrast to the silence between us. The emotional weight deepened in 2020, with the pandemic locking down Portland and forcing me into isolation, where the hurt and anger over Nathan's actions had nowhere to hide. I'd sit in my home office, the city outside eerily quiet. No food carts, no buskers on Burnside, staring at old photos of us on my laptop, like one from a camping trip to Crater Lake, where we're grinning by a fire, wondering how that closeness turned to ash. I started second-guessing myself, questioning if I'd overreacted to the wedding incident, or if my refusal to reach out was just pride, though every attempt to text him died in my drafts, the memory of his non-apology stopping me cold. The gloom of Portland's endless rain felt heavier that year, each drop on my window a reminder of the family I'd lost, while I clung to Emily's support but feared I was dragging her down with my unresolved mess. The unexpected twist hit me in November 2021, on a cold, foggy evening when Portland's streets were slick with rain, and a call from our cousin revealed a truth about Nathan that shattered every assumption I'd held. She told me Nathan had been struggling with a prescription painkiller addiction for years, sparked by a back injury from a construction job, a secret he'd hidden from everyone, and that his behavior at my wedding wasn't just spite. It was him spiraling out of control, too ashamed to admit he needed help. Sitting on my couch, the distant sound of rain hammering the roof, I felt a storm of emotions, shock that I'd missed something so huge, guilt for assuming the worst, and a fresh wave of anger that he'd let it destroy my day rather than confide in me. Portland's somber beauty, the misty outline of the Fremont Bridge, the quiet of empty parks, felt like a mirror to my confusion, leaving me wondering if I'd failed him as much as he'd failed me. Reeling from this revelation, I wrestled with what to do next, torn between the hurt he'd caused and the new lens of his addiction. Each rainy day in 2022 a step toward understanding, but not yet forgiveness. I didn't reach out right away, too raw, too unsure, but I started digging into what addiction meant, reading stories online late at night in my dimly lit apartment, the glow of my screen a lifeline as I tried to grasp why he'd kept this from me. I'd walk through Laurelhouse Park, the crunch of wet leaves underfoot, remembering how Nathan had always been the strong one, wondering if I'd put too much on him growing up, or if I'd been too quick to judge when he fell apart. Portland's slow return to life, food carts reopening, laughter on Alberta Street, felt like a nudge to rebuild, though every thought of contacting him carried the weight of that wedding day, a scar I wasn't sure I could overlook. Reflecting on our shared past became a near-constant loop, especially on quiet evenings when I'd sit by my window, watching rain streak down the glass, thinking about the brothers we used to be. I'd recall the time Nathan stood up for me in middle school, scaring off a group of jerks who'd cornered me near our old house, his fierce loyalty a memory now shadowed by the image of him slurring through my wedding. I thought about our late-night talks as teens, sprawled on the roof with stolen beers, dreaming of futures that didn't include this kind of pain, now warped by years of silence. I'd wander through Portland's farmers markets on Saturdays, the smell of fresh bread and coffee grounding me, wondering if I'd ignored signs of his struggle, his mood swings, his disappearances, or if I'd been too wrapped up in my own life to notice. The city's resilience, locals rebuilding after hard times, community events blooming again, challenged me to decide if I could let go of the past, or if some hurts were too deep to heal. By mid-2022, I'd started taking small steps toward reconciliation, driven by the knowledge of Nathan's addiction, though the path was rocky and the hurt still raw. I sent him a short text after months of debate, just checking in, no mention of the wedding, and got a brief reply saying he was getting help, a flicker of hope that felt fragile against years of resentment. I'd escaped to the Oregon coast on rare weekends, standing on Cannon Beach with the wind whipping around me, the vastness of the ocean a reminder of how small our fight seemed, yet how heavy it weighed, wondering if I'd been too stubborn or if forgiveness meant ignoring my own pain. Portland's moody charm, the fog over the West Hills, the quiet of late-night diners, kept me grounded, though every step toward Nathan felt like walking a tightrope, unsure if we'd ever rebuild what we'd lost. The grind of processing this new reality stretched into early 2023 as I balanced my own life, work, marriage, personal growth, with the slow, uncertain process of reconnecting with Nathan. I met him once for coffee at a small shop in St. John's, the smell of roasted beans thick in the air, sitting across from a version of him I barely recognized, thinner, quieter, eyes carrying a weight I hadn't seen before. We didn't talk about the wedding, just surface stuff, but the air between us crackled with unspoken history, a moment that left me hopeful but drained, wondering if we'd ever address the elephant in the room. I drive through the Columbia River Gorge on off days, the dramatic cliffs and waterfalls a backdrop to my thoughts, questioning if I'd been too hard on him, or if expecting an apology was still fair, even knowing his struggle. Portland's creative pulse, art shows, local music, pushed me to keep trying, though the full picture of our brotherhood felt like a puzzle with missing pieces. The emotional toll of navigating this fractured bond didn't fade easily. Even as I pushed forward, each memory of our past a reminder of how fragile family can be. I'd catch myself avoiding certain spots in the city, like the old dive bar near Division where we'd celebrated my engagement, unable to face the ghosts of happier times without feeling that sting of betrayal. I started journaling my thoughts late at night, the rain a steady rhythm outside, wondering if I'd let this hurt define me too long, or if I'd reclaimed enough by opening the door to Nathan again, even just a crack. I'd walk along the waterfront during rare sunny breaks, the glint of the river calming me, asking myself if I'd been too quick to shut him out back then, or if that distance was the only way I'd survive the pain. Reflecting on the journey to forgive Nathan, or at least understand him, I spent a lot of time wandering Portland's quieter corners, like the paths in Tryon Creek State Park, the damp forest air grounding me as I thought about what I'd gained and lost. I'd remember the early days with him, racing bikes through our neighborhood, laughing until we couldn't breathe, a joy now tainted by the memory of his glassy eyes at my wedding. I thought about his quiet admission of getting help, a small step now warped by the years of silence before it, reduced to cautious texts if I'm lucky. I'd sit on park benches near the river, sketching designs in the fading light, wondering if I'd been too naive to see his struggles, or if I'd ignored red flags in his behavior over the years. Portland's raw beauty, the endless drizzle, the river's steady flow, felt like a challenge, pushing me to decide if I'd let this pain shape me forever, or if I could forge something new despite it. By late 2023, I'd built a life I could call stable, with a stronger marriage to Emily and a growing freelance design career, though not unscathed by the journey with Nathan. I celebrated small victories, like a solo trip to Mount Hood, standing in the snow with the wind biting my face, a sense of clarity I hadn't felt in years, though I still caught flickers of resentment in my reflection during quiet moments, a reminder of the trust one was still rebuilding. Yet, every time I'd hear from Nathan, a rare message about a sober milestone, usually short and awkward, I'd feel that old mix of hope and caution, wondering if we'd ever truly address the wedding, or if we were doomed to this surface-level truce. I started mentoring younger designers at local meetups, sharing skills, the act of balm and a blade, unsure if I was healing or just hiding from the bigger questions about my brother. The weight of my lingering doubts didn't fade easily. Even as I pushed forward, each memory of that ruined day a reminder of how quickly trust can shatter. I'd spend hours in my apartment, scrolling through old photos of family trips, finding a shot of Nathan and me at the Oregon Zoo as kids, grinning with ice cream smeared on our faces, and feel a pang of longing for the simplicity we'd lost, now replaced by a guarded hope when I'd get a rare update from him. I started avoiding big family gatherings beyond quick holiday drop-ins, unable to sit through hours of small talk with unspoken history hanging over us, wondering if he ever regretted that day or if he still saw it as his truth. I'd walk through downtown Portland on quiet evenings, past the food carts and murals, feeling like a stranger in my own story, asking myself if I'd let this betrayal steal too much from me, or if I'd reclaimed enough by trying to understand him. Now, as I sit here in my small apartment, the soft glow of my desk lamp casting shadows on my sketchpad, the distant sound of rain tapping against the window, I'm still wrestling with where to go from here. My life feels steadier, with a fragile connection to Nathan and a shot at rebuilding something real on the horizon, but not whole, not yet. There are nights when I stare at my phone, wondering if pushing for a real conversation about the wedding could mend something, or if it'd just reopen the wound. And then there's the part of me that just wants to focus on my own path, to stop letting this history loom over me. Maybe even take a design gig in Seattle or somewhere new for a fresh start, though I'd hate to leave Portland's familiar comfort. So, I'm turning to you, my listeners, because I'm at a crossroads and I could really use your perspective. Have you ever had a family member hurt you so deeply that forgiveness felt impossible, only to learn there was more to their story than you realized? How did you handle it? Did you push for closure, even if it meant more pain, or did you focus on building your own peace, letting the past stay buried? I'm torn between digging deeper with Nathan, risking old wounds for the chance of real healing, or just keeping this cautious distance and focusing on my own future. Drop your thoughts below, because I'm still figuring out how to let go of the hurt without losing the brother I used to know.